I'm so scared. I am really so scared, especially after you coming up with all this stuff. I didn't understand a word, but I recognised the typewriter, because that's how far back I go. Now, actually, what I'm really going to do today is to try and speak slowly, because when I speak, as an Irishman, I speak ever so quickly and nobody understands what I'm saying. So I will try and speak slowly, and I'm going to try and speak about this. But if I wanted to, I could actually wear this. And this is pretty important, but you see, if I wore this, then you would think, hey, that's something to do with violence. And footballs aren't to do with violence. So what I really want to talk to you about actually is something like this. Now, you imagine, if you have any knowledge about Israel and Palestine, you'll know that that's a joke. And yet it isn't a joke, because some of us started a few years ago and we put together a project which I'm going to try and tell you about. Now, one thing that is important is actually you better know something a bit about me, because, okay, I'm a student at Sussex, but I'm also, can you see it? One of these. Can you see what it is? Okay. My young friend here said, oh, you're a priest. Well, I guess in a funny kind of way I am. I'm the Baptist chaplain at this university. And I want to talk to you about, well, first of all, let's start with this lot. All right, now those of you who know your Arabic know that that's a thing called Nadia Mahaba, and it's to do with a youth club which I got associated with in the northern village of Ibilin in Israel. And it was a club which had got, can you believe it? Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, we're going to have to change the room. It's all wrong here. Can you fellas get out of here and go and sit over here? And you girls, come and sit over here. Because girls and boys don't mix in Palestinian, Muslim communities. You go and have a meal with the Muslims, you go and have prayer with the Muslims. The boys are in one side, the girls are in the other. And so this was the place I went into, where in Israel, in this Muslim Christian village, boys and girls didn't mix until they started a youth club. And the youth club was called the Knights. And what they did was they got together, these boys and girls, Christians and Muslims, into a youth club. That was really, really difficult. And it got even worse, because when they started getting together, so many of the youngsters from the village, Christians and Muslims, wanted to join together that in fact they hadn't got anywhere to meet, and so we actually raised the money for them to be able to rent a place so that the unforgivable thing could happen. Girls and boys could mix together, and then the terrible thing happened. Is it on here? No. Is it on here? No. Is it on here? No. Shall I tell you what I'm looking for? It's a T-shirt that they wore at this summer camp when we broke all the rules. Girls and boys together, going away at the same time, living in a camp. And guess what? They went swimming together. Girls and boys. Some people were so offended, but it was wonderful. You saw all these little kids. I mean, 16 years of age. At my age, they're all kids, you know. But there they were, and we would go swimming together. And in the evening, they had a dance. And one of these lovely young women came to me and she said, would you teach me how to dance? And so I took this girl, and old man though I was, and beautiful though she was, we started dancing. Unforgivable! Before the end of the week, girls and boys, Christians and Muslim kids, were dancing. We broke down the barriers. We broke down the divisions. And so eventually the next thing to do was, oh, fancy me not noticing. What if the one thing they've all got in common out there? They're mad keen about football. So what do? If you're an Englishman, you write to the English First Division Premier clubs and you say, hey, all these kids out in Israel with Muslim and Christian kids, they're mad keen about English football. Will you send us some footballs? Will you send us some shirts? Will you send us some photographs? Poured in. So we went to this, in the summer, we went out there again, my wife and I, and we had all this jolly stuff, you see, and they were thrilled to bits. But the next thing was, well now, how can we get them playing football? They haven't got a football pitch. Can you imagine? They hadn't got a football pitch, but we found one. And the next question was, it came to me in the middle of the night, how do we get them to play football? We need some coaches. Where do we get the coaches who can train the kids? Well, before all of you were born, I was chaplain to the University of Brighton. And at the University of Brighton, there was a student who came along whose name is David Bedford, who now organises the Flora London Marathon and has done for years. And it came to me in the middle of the night, because that's what happened when you have one of these things. It came to me in the middle of the night, and it said, get hold of Dave. And I said, all right, boss. So I rang up Dave, and I hadn't seen David Bedford in 30 years since he'd been a student of mine over there in Brighton, now the University of Brighton. And I said, I've got an idea. So he said, come up for lunch. And I told him, what we want to do is we want to get these boys and girls, Christians and Muslims, but there's one thing else we want to do. How can you have, in Israel, a football project with girls and boys and Christians and Muslims? Who's missing? Come on, who's missing? The Jews. The Jews. How can you have a project in Israel for Christians and Muslims, boys and girls, two divisions broken down, without bringing in the Jews? And they said it wouldn't be possible. So what we did was we went along to the Israeli embassy and we explained to them, oh, that would be very good, that would be wonderful, but of course it would be very, very difficult, did we not know it? But the fortunate thing is, at this village up in the north of Israel, they were very great friends with a Jewish community called Misgav. All right, these Israeli kids right over there. And then the question was, well, would they come in? Well, you see, that's where you get sneaky. Because what you do is you get hold of all the famous football clubs in England, like Chelsea and Chelsea and Chelsea and Chelsea, because none of the others matter. Don't throw things, not allowed. And you see, then what happened was, well, we get these kids and we tell them about Chelsea, and then we tell Chelsea about the kids, and then the result is, to cut a long story short, because I could take hours about this, what we did was we got a team of football coaches who would actually come and they would provide the skills to take the kids, boys and girls, Christians and Muslim and Jews, and put them in mixed teams against mixed teams. Beat that. It was going great. So the question was, where do we get the money? If we're going to have all these kids together, how do we get the coaches? Well, we got the coaches from the University of Brighton, where I was chaplain, and they came on and they said, yeah, fine, we'll come, we'll all come. So we had our team of coaches. Nobody gets paid for all this, incidentally. Nobody got paid. So they came and they gave up part of their summer vacation. But the question is, how do you get them out there? And who's going to pay for it? David Bedford. I could give you a number of places in the Flora London Marathon. You get the runners, you can have the money for the project. Several weeks later, we had a bunch of very, very organised and very, very just devastated and physically out of it students who'd run the London Marathon. Okay, and they'd raise the money, and that paid for the fares for the students to go out there as the coaches, and for the equipment. And after a football club came in and gave us a whole pile of equipment, and out we went. Jews, Christians and Muslims all set up. And guess what happened? Who pulled out? The Jews. Couldn't do it. And they gave all sorts of reasons. But you see, we've been crafty. I went along about a few months before, and I went to the British Embassy in Israel. And I explained to them what we were going to do, and what we didn't ask for any money, didn't ask for permission, never do that. Just told them we were going to bring a bunch of English football coaches. They ought to know. And then as we were leaving, I said, oh, by the way, the ambassador will be there to present the prizes, won't you? But we'll have to see, he said. Guess what? Who came along to present the prizes? The British ambassador. But the Jews had pulled out. Were we going to let the thing fold? So the Christians and the Muslims had their project. Christians and Muslims, mixed teams against mixed teams, boys and girls, blah, 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 blah. Wonderful. And the ambassador came along, presented the prizes, and all the television boys were there, filming it. And it went out, you see, on nationwide television, and the Jews weren't there. 2 weeks later, we've been reconsidering. They wanted to come back in. And I said to my crowd, not a word, but welcome. Not a word, but welcome. In your cup. So what happened? They came in and they joined in. And this was the result. And I'll tell you why I'm wearing this, and that is if you can get the camera to zoom up, you can onto this thing, and you'll see actually not just simply the World Sports Peace Project, which is what we called it, but you'll see here something that was designed by a Muslim. And it has a football, okay, and outside the dove of peace on the globe. And so we coined the title, World Sports Peace Project. The first project we had 100 kids. The second project we had 3 towns. Muslims, Christians and Jews. Mixed teams against mixed teams. So whatever the propaganda, if they were going to win, if they were going to be champions on our little tournament, they had to work out that if they're going to get on and win, they're going to have to put aside all that divided them and make teams. And they did. So what happened after that? The next year, the ambassador came again, presented the prizes, more publicity, thank you to the cameramen. 300 kids the next year. But the trouble is, we found that they wouldn't talk to each other. The Jews were over there in one part of the field, the Christians were there, the Muslims were there, they got on all right, and the Jews wouldn't take part. So what we did was, I won't get you to do it, but if we had a bit of time, I'd really have some fun with you. I'd get 4 of you here on the floor, and then I get 3, and then I get 2, and then I get 1, and then you start laughing, all perhaps down. So having been in different parts of the field, there they were, getting on with it, loving it, enjoying it. And by the end of the week, you couldn't tell the difference between who was the Christian, who was the Jew, who was the Muslim. I've got 4 minutes. How do I squeeze it all together? David Bedford and I said, we will do this for 3 years, and if it takes off, it'll be so big, that it'll be too big for any of us. And if it drops down dead in the water, well, it drops down dead in the water, so be it. But in fact, what happened, after 3 years, David Bedford and I handed the thing over, lock, stock and barrel, because never hang on to something. If it's good, pass it on. And they did. The University of Brighton took it over. They changed it into, well, if I can find any of these shirts, because I was going to wear all these, and I was going to get you to wear them, but it would take us too much time. No, we'll let it go. What had happened was that we made sure that everybody had a shirt with the emblazoned the World Sports Peace Project. When we handed over to the University of Brighton and the British Council, who couldn't wait to get their hands on it, they called it Football for Peace. Fine, who cares what it's called as long as you're doing the job? So here we have Football for Peace. Guess how many people there were there, how many kids and how many towns were taking part a couple of years ago on the 10th anniversary? 2,000 kids, 26 towns. Mixed teams against mixed teams, putting aside all the propaganda and all the divisive stuff that they brought them been saturated with. And they were finding they could be mates with Christians and Muslims and Jews, boys and girls. It could happen. It was happening in front of them. They were creating it. Why don't I stop there?